Again, glad that you are here today to worship with us as we go through this series in the book of James. I was thinking this week, I have been on my spiritual journey, I guess all of my life, but I have been on my journey with Christ for about the last 20 years or so. Actually, almost 40 years, actually. Do my math right, 40 years or so. And so I've been walking on that journey. I was saved as a young boy. And just to be very honest with you, the first probably 15 years of my walk with Christ was not very fruitful, and I did not grow a whole lot. I grew up in the error of, and did. I got up every Sunday. I went to church. I sang some songs. The preacher preached. He prayed. We went home. We just did whatever the whole rest of the week. And then next Sunday we'd get back up again. We would go back to church. We would sing the same songs. The preacher would preach. He would pray. We'd leave there and go home and do whatever we did all week long. And that's how I sort of grew up. And I heard Greg Grace talk about growing up in church and in a Christian school. I did all of that as well. And it's sort of funny that you could go to church every Sunday and even be in a Christian school, and yet later look back at your life going, I really didn't grow a whole lot spiritually. But it's a reality of a lot of folks that maybe even have that testimony of not growing a whole lot. And it wasn't until I was really about 21 years old that I really began to grow. Until then, God was sort of I talked about when I wrote it down here, I had a theology of convenience. Like if it was convenient for me, then I might go to church. If it was convenient for me, then I might pray. If there was something I needed God to do for me, I would pray. And so I had this theology of convenience because when it wasn't convenient, I didn't need Him. I didn't worry about it. And so I grew up in a lot of years with this theology of convenience. But when I turned 21 and some things happened, I've shared the story of how one of my really good friends about died in a drunk driving accident. And I had another good friend who was married and divorced, married at 18, divorced at 19, and had a child and some different things like that. And so the people around me began to make some decisions. And I was in that time of decision of whether I was going to make some of the same decisions they were making or some of the different decisions than some of them had made. When I was a teenager, because I wasn't growing much, I did like a lot of teenagers. I had some really good friends and I had some really bad friends. I made some really good decisions as a teenager, made some dumb decisions as a teenager. Did some good things as a teenager, did some bad things as a teenager. But because I wasn't growing and God was just this theology of convenience, it really didn't matter to me. It really didn't matter to me. And at 21, I finally began to grow. I really, at 21, began to give God a priority in my life. I began at 21 to focus more on this relationship I can have with God than a religion that I could go to every Sunday. At 21, I began to see things as the Bible was teaching them to me. And I was beginning to, at 21, adjust my life to what the Bible was teaching me. And it wasn't just a verse anymore, but it was a verse that had meaning. And it wasn't just a story that I read. It was a story I applied to my life. And at 21, I began to finally, in my spiritual journey, grow as a believer, grow as a Christian. And so that's why we're doing this series, talking about practical theology. Like, how do you put what you believe about God into your everyday life? And see, the reality is, how you live is your theology. How you live shows what you believe about God. And so you may read a verse of Scripture and you may say, I don't like what that says to me. And so you choose to live away apart from that verse of Scripture or that teaching in the Scriptures. And so our theology every day is how we live. And so the reason we're doing this is so that we can look through the book of James, which is a very practical book about real practical everyday issues, and figure out how are we applying that into our daily lives. And so that's why we're doing this series called Practical Theology 101. We just want to learn how to put God into our daily lives. Now, before I go on, I want to do a very informal, unscientific experiment. Okay, I don't have a control group. I just have 4 questions that I want to ask you. Okay, 4 questions. Here's the first question. Who in here has been hurt by someone else's words? Who in here has been hurt by someone else's words? Okay. Second question. Who in here has been hurt irreparably by someone else's words? Maybe you lost a relationship. You broke off something tore up, something ripped up in your life. Okay. Third question. Who here has been encouraged by someone else's words? Who here has been encouraged by someone else's words? Good. And then the fourth question, who would say that your life has been changed by someone else's words? You could say, really, my life has changed because of what maybe that person said to me. Several of us. Now, I'll spare us the embarrassment of asking the flip side of that coin, of asking us how many of us have hurt people with our words, how many of us have ruined relationships with our words. I don't want us to stick our hands up and be embarrassed by that. But today in James chapter 3, we're going to talk about our words, and we're going to talk about our mouths, and we're going to talk about the things we say. Now you have to remember, and I have to tell you this every week just because we always have to remember who James is writing to. James is writing to this group of Jewish people who grew up in the Jewish religion, had come to understand, believe, and follow Christ. Okay, that's a very important point. They have gone from Jewish religion and knowing all the scriptures and the laws and the rules to this faith and belief in Jesus Christ. Because of that, they had been persecuted. They had been beaten up, stoned to death, killed. They were persecuted, and so they had scattered. And so James is writing this letter to those people. In short, he's writing to the church folk. He's not writing this letter to the world. He's writing this letter to the people who know God, the people who know Christ, the people who have this relationship with God and with Jesus Christ. And that's very important for us to remember, because as we go through this series, you may hear something go, oh, he isn't speaking to me. Oh, yes, he is. Because you are church folk. We are church folk. And so he's writing this letter to the church folk. And so James chapter 3, and we're going to just look at a few verses this morning about our words. James chapter 3, verse 2. If you have your Bibles, it'll be there. If not, I believe it'll be up behind me. It says, indeed, we all make mistakes. I love that part of the verse just because it helps us to know that we're all on equal footing. You and I are all in the same place. We have all made mistakes. For if we could control our tongues, we would be perfect. It could also control ourselves in every other way. Isn't that pretty? It's pretty mind-blowing there that if I could just control my tongue, I could control everything else about my life in every way. We can make a large horse go wherever we want by means of a small bit in its mouth. And a small rudder makes a huge ship turn wherever the pilot chooses to go. Even though the winds are strong, in the same way, the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches. But a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. A tongue is a flame of fire. It is a whole world of wickedness corrupting our entire body. It can set your whole life on fire, for it is set on fire by hell itself. The first thing that we see this morning from these few verses right here is the power of our words. The power of our words. Here in these verses, James uses some imagery. He uses the image of fire and of hell. He uses the image of a boat and a rudder. He uses the image of a horse and a bit. Now, I don't have any fire stories to tell you, and I don't go out in boats very often, so I can't tell you a story, but I do have 2 horse stories in my life. The first horse story is very simple. I was standing beside of a horse while a friend of mine was washing the horse and brushing it, and the horse stood on my foot. All right, when you scream, when a horse stands on your foot and you scream, the horse does not move. In fact, he pushes harder on your foot. First story. That's one of my horse stories. My second horse story is a little bit better, only worse. I was a teenager, and I lived near a horse ring where they did horse shows. It wasn't near as grand as the Ag Center, but I could walk through the woods, hop a fence, and I would be where they had these horse shows all summer long. Every Saturday and Sunday they would have these horse shows. On the other side of the horse show place was a girl that I went to school with. She was in my grade, and I guess I could say this. I sort of thought she was cute. And so, but because we lived so close together, we actually lived a good ways away from our school, that we rode together. Her parents drove us and picked us up every day because my parents were working and her mom was free to do that, and she had brothers and sisters that went. So I just sort of hitched a ride all the way in and all the way out. And one day we come home and she says, "You want to go ride? You want to go ride a horse?" And of course I'm thinking, shoot, yeah, I'll get my cowboy boots on. I'll go ride a horse. You know, I'm just thinking, I'll go ride a horse with you, whatever. And so I didn't have cowboy boots. So I just went through the woods, hopped the fence, and there she was. She was in the middle of the horse ring with her horse, and she was just sort of trotting around. Now, she showed horses. She raised them. You know, she knew everything about them. And so she just sort of galloping around. I go down there, and she goes, "You want to ride the horse?" I'm like, "Shoot, yeah, I want to ride the horse." And so I hop up there, and she's like, "Okay, well, here's the reins." And she said, "Now, here's what's really cool." She says, "If you want to make it go, you can do the." Okay, you ever notice that? People go, "Horse." I don't know what that does, but it makes a horse go sometimes. And she said, "Now, if that doesn't work, you go," and then you take your feet, and you sort of give it a little kick. Okay, I'm not sure what and that does, but that's what she told me to do. She said, "Now, if that doesn't work, you go," and none of that worked. She said, "Then here's a riding crop." She go, "Whack, whack." So you go, whack, whack, if you want to get the horse to go. Okay? And I'm trying to play it off cool. I really am. I mean, this girl's cute. And so, okay, here I go. And so I go, lo and behold, the horse starts to trot a little bit. I'm like, I'm cool with this. Oh, I forgot the one thing she told me about the riding crop is you can't let the horse see the riding crop. He hates the riding crop. You can hit him with it, but you can't let him see it. You have to remember that. So it starts galloping a little bit, and it works its way all the way to the other end of the horse ring. You know how they're long and oval, and so I'm on the horse down at this end, and by now she's at that end, and all of a sudden the horse stops. So I doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything. Whack, whack. All of a sudden it starts to trot. And it's actually getting up a good little pace. And so I have to take my free hand that's holding the riding crop and grab the reins. Now, I'm grabbing the reins with the riding crop in my hand. He's getting up a pretty big gallop. But anybody know where a horse's eyes are? Right on the side of its head. And that riding crop, when I went to grab the reins, that riding crop went. And that horse took off in a dead run. I'm not talking a gallop. I'm talking a dead run. And I'm sitting there holding on for dear. At this time, cool is out the door. And I don't care. I just want to live. Just get me off the horse. And I'm screaming. Really, she's at the other end, and I'm just screaming, "Stop it! Stop it!" And the whole time I'm just holding the riding crop. If I would have dropped the riding crop, the horse would have stopped. But I just have the riding crop right by its eyes. So it's just beating it as far as it... Boom, man. And I am scared to death. Scared to death. You know what she did? Now, it is her horse. It wasn't some strange horse. She got right in front of it. She didn't get to the side. She didn't just say, "Hold on for dear life." She got right in front of it. When it got to her, it slowed up, and she grabbed the reins right where the bit is and just jerked the horse's head down. And it stopped. And I got off. And I went home to change my drawers. The average horse weighs about 1,000 pounds. And yet you can control it with about a 3-pound bit in its mouth. I'll never forget that day. I didn't care if that girl liked me, School was over. In fact, a couple weeks later, she's like, you want to ride again? Nope, not interested. I will not ride a horse to this day. I don't care if I'm at the Ag Center and it's just a little thing where the person's going to walk around with you. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. There might be a riding crop around. I'm not getting in that again. But it's amazing how a 1,000-pound horse can be stopped dead by a 3-pound bit. And yet here, that's the imagery that James gives us about the power of our words. Our words are so strong that if we could just control that 3-pound tongue, that 1-pound piece of flesh that's in our mouth, if we could just control that, we could control every part of our lives. It's pretty incredible, if you ask me. Proverbs 10 and verse 11 says, the words of the godly are a life-giving fountain, and the words of the wicked conceal violent intentions. Proverbs 16, verse 23 and 24 says, the words of the wise are persuasive. I love this part. Kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy for the body. Verse 27 gives us the flip side. Scoundrels create trouble. Their words are a destructive blaze. The power of our words. Our words are so powerful. And what James tells us here, it really is the hardest thing in your life to control. And as you showed earlier, some of us have been encouraged, some of us have had our life changed by words, and some of us have lost relationships and been damaged and suffered hurt and pain by words. A very powerful, powerful thing. Verses 7 to 12 finish up James's discussion about words. Let me just read those. It says, people can tame all kinds of animals and birds and reptiles and fish, but no one can tame the tongue. It is restless and evil, full of deadly poison. Sometimes it praises our Lord and Father, and sometimes it curses those who have been made in the image of God. And so blessing and cursing come pouring out of the same mouth. Surely, my brothers and sisters, this is not right. Does a spring of water bubble out both fresh water and bitter water? Does a fig tree produce olives or a grapevine produce figs? No, you can't draw fresh water from a salty spring. Here it tells us about the duality of our words. With our words, we can praise and we can curse. With our words, we can build up people and we can tear down people. With our words, we can encourage people and we can discourage people. With our words, we can give life, and with our words, we can destroy life. Our words have the power to enhance relationships or ruin relationships. We can use the very same mouth and we can pray, and at the very same time, we can gossip. We can use our words to break addictions. We can also use our words to cause addictions. Our words are precious and precise. And one of the struggles that we all have is the duality of it. One moment we're praising, the next minute we're cursing. One minute we're building somebody up, and the next minute we're tearing somebody down. One minute we're speaking the truth, and the next minute we're speaking a lie. The duality of our words. I would say this to you. Many of you in here I know are teachers. Always remember the power of your words. You want to be the teacher. You want to be the teacher that the kid says, their words changed my life. Their words changed my life. Some of you are here today and you're in the business world. Remember the power of your words. Don't be the businessman that is at church on Sunday singing all the worship songs and then telling the dirty joke by the water cooler on Monday. Don't be the businessman that is inviting people to come to church with you from work and then you're lying and gossiping at work and stealing deals from them. Don't be that person. Some of you in here are stay-at-home parents. Always remember the power of your words. The power of your words. Today, to help put it in practical terms, I want to give you 4 W's for our words. 4 W's for our words. You can write them down, jot them down, make a note of them, stick them in your iPhone notes somewhere because you're going to need these this week. Here's the first one. Wounded people wound people. Wounded people wound people. You know, I know what it's like to have someone bless you out or chew you out. I know what it's like to have somebody fling insults your way or to hurl things your way. I've gotten nasty emails about something, but here's what I've learned over the course of a long time is that a lot of times the words that are hurled at me have nothing to do with me. The words that are sent my way, the words that are said to me or written in an email or whatever, a lot of times they have very little to do with me. They have something to do with a hurt or a wound or a scar or a pattern in that person's life that they're not dealing with. Wounded people wound people. And sometimes we're the ones who wound people. And so you may be here today, and the reality is you have wounded someone, and the reality is that it really is a wound inside of your life that you've not dealt with. It's a hurt, a pain, a scar. Someone did you wrong, a mistrust, a lie, something inside of you that you've never dealt with. And so you are sitting there wounding other people. You're wounding your coworkers. You're wounding your family. You're wounding a lot of other people that have nothing to do with the wound that is inside of you. Here's the second W. What escapes the mouth rests in the mouth. What escapes the mouth rests in the mouth. Listen to Matthew 15. Verse 11 says, "It's not what goes in your mouth that defiles you. You are defiled by the words that come out of your mouth." Verse 18 says, "The words you speak come from the heart, and that's what defiles you." Here Jesus is talking to the Pharisees and the religious leaders of the day. He isn't talking to the drunk. He isn't talking to the abuser. He isn't talking to the shady tax collector. He's talking to the religious people when he says what the words come from your heart, and the words in your heart is what defile you. That's why our words are so powerful, because they really do reflect what's inside of our heart. They will reflect the good and the bad. They will reflect the beautiful and the ugly. They will reflect healing or they will reflect hurt. Our words are incredibly powerful. Here's the third W. Words can be salt, salve, or peroxide. Words can be salt, salve, or peroxide. Have you ever had to go through that? I mean, if you get a cut on your hand, there's a difference. I don't know if you've ever done this. Maybe cut your hand while you're cutting up some fruit or something, and then the juice of the fruit gets into your cut, and you have this stinging sensation that just will not go away. Or you've cut yourself and you go get the Neosporin, right? And you put that on there and it sort of begins to heal. Or sometimes you cut yourself and you have to go get the peroxide, right? Which what? Stings initially, but it prevents you from getting an infection that could cause you to lose your thumb or your finger or your toe, whatever you've cut. Sometimes our words are like that. There was a better video. It just happened yesterday, but this was a video that I got this week. It's real recent. You'll remember it. I want you guys to watch this video of how this person uses their words.
Everybody, heads up high. Heads up high. Let's talk for a moment here. Look, I got to see your eyes, guys. Okay? There's no disappointment, okay, in your effort. Okay, in the whole tournament, in the whole season. It's been an incredible journey, okay? We fought, look at the score, 8-7, okay? 12-10 in hits. Came to the last out, we didn't quit. That's us. Boys, that's us. The only reason why, okay, I'll probably end up shedding a tear is because this is the last time I'm going to end up coaching you guys. But I'm going to bring back with me, and the coaching staff are going to bring back with me, and you guys are going to bring back something, okay, that no other team can provide but you guys. That's pride. Okay? Pride. You're going to take that for the rest of your life, what you provided for a town in Cumberland. You had the whole place jumping, right? You had the whole state jumping. You had New England jumping. You had ESPN jumping, okay? Because want to know why? They like fighters. They like sportsmen. They like guys who don't quit. They like guys who play the game the right way. Okay, we got down to the nitty-gritty. We're one of the best teams in the world. Think about that for a second. For the world, right? So we need to go see our parents because they're so proud of you. Okay. But one more. I want a big hug. I want everyone to come in here for one big hug. Okay. One big hug. One big hug. Then we're gonna go celebrate. Hey boys. Then we're gonna go celebrate with our parents. And then tomorrow we're gonna celebrate. And then we'll come back home to a big parade. Okay. Got it? Okay. I love you guys. I'm gonna love you forever. And you've given me the most precious moment. Okay. Of my athletic and coaching career, and I've been coaching a long time, okay? A long time. I'm getting to be an old man. I need memories like this. I need kids like this, okay? You're all my boys, okay? You'll be the boys of summer, okay? So for the last time, we're going to try to suck it up, and we're going to yell Americans, okay? 1, 2, 3! Americans! Okay, boys, good job.
The power of words. When I watched that for the very first time, in fact, I just did, I got goosebumps. Yesterday, if you were watching the World Series and you saw the Nevada team lose, it was much the same thing. The coach coming around while these 12 and 13-year-old boys are bawling their eyes out, and he was encouraging them to pick their heads up and be proud of what they had done. The power of your words. The power of our words has the opportunity to tear a kid down or to build a kid up. To build a memory in a kid's head that will last forever, that one day they'll be telling the story of who changed their life, or to do just the opposite and create a star in some kid's story. That down the road he's passing on to other people. Listen to what Ephesians 4:29 says. It says, "Do not use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that the words will be an encouragement to those who hear them." Sometimes our words are salt. Sometimes our words are salve. Sometimes our words are peroxide. And you need to consider that before you say them. Here's point number 4. We're about done. Why not grant? Why not grant? See, the reality of your life and my life is sometimes when people have hurt us with words, okay, they have wounded us, scarred us, hurt us. When that happens, a lot of times what happens is you and I tuck it away and experience that with us. Depending on when that wound and that scar happens, it could affect, however far back it went, it could affect your relationships, it could have affected your dating relationships, it could have affected who you married and why you got married, it could have affected your job you chose, it could have affected all sorts of things in your life because all along you were carrying this baggage with you of unforgiveness. Here's one thing I've learned about unforgiveness. Most of the people that I forgive and end up forgiving for something never even knew I was bothered by it. They didn't lose a wink of sleep over it, though I may not have slept for weeks. It didn't give them an ulcer while it forced me to drink Pepto-Bismol. It didn't wreck their day at work while it was wreaking havoc on mine. For most of the time, most of the cases, they didn't realize. And a few, just to be honest, didn't care. But I was the one carrying the unforgiveness. And you might be here today and you might be carrying unforgiveness. Somebody hurt you with words. Somebody tore you down with words. Somebody ripped you up with words. They lied to you. They gossiped about you. They used words, and the power of the words hurt you in some way. And today you're carrying around unforgiveness. And what you don't realize is you're a wounded person, and so there's probably spots in your life where you are now wounding people because of your wound. Are the power of our words. Today, why not grant forgiveness to that person who hurt you with their words? Why not drop the weight you're carrying? Why not free yourself from the weight by forgiving them? Listen to Psalm 19:14. This is a psalm. It says, "May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be pleasing to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer." I think it's awesome there that it talks about the words of my mouth, but then just like Matthew told us, it takes it a little bit deeper. And the meditations of my heart be pleasing to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. I want to encourage you to do three things this week. Sort of next steps, maybe take this even a little bit further. I want to encourage you, as I have every week, to read James chapter 3 every day this week. You don't have to read the whole book. Just read James chapter 3 this week, every day. There's a lot more there that we haven't covered, and the stuff we have covered will seek you more and more. This week in my study, I found two other chapters in the Bible that are real powerful when it talks about our words. So I want to encourage you this week. You don't have to do it every day, but I want to encourage you to read Psalm 119 and Proverbs chapter 2 sometime during the course of this week. Both of those chapters are very powerful when it talks about our words. And then finally, I ask you this question. Who do you need to forgive this week? Who do you need to forgive this week? Or will you at least open yourself up? When somebody hurts you tomorrow at work with their words, will you open yourself up to quickly forgive them for their words? Our words are so powerful. We can control our tongue, we can control our whole body, and we can be perfect in every way. And all of us in here